Hi all, welcome to the final whistle for the first match preview of 2023. The Cottagers are in town as they take on Leicester City tomorrow night at King Power Stadium. I'll be joined by Russ Goldman from Cottage Talk. He will give me an insight into the opposition. He'll also give me an insight to Alexander Mitrovic, who seems to be a completely different player this time round in the Premier League. The man scoring goals. Just hopefully tomorrow night we can keep him out. But I'll be joined by Russ very shortly. As always, guys, smash a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Really much appreciated. Let's get to 1K. And let's get this match preview underway then. And I'll see you in just a minute. Hi all, welcome to the final whistle for another match review then. Let's get a few good evenings in first. Reenie B, how are you? Sean Sarson, how are you, mate? Really hope you're well. I hope we wanted 3 points against Fulham. Well, we've got to start the new year off brightly, haven't we? And hopefully we can do that against the Cottagers tomorrow night, which is Fulham. Let's get my guest in. Mr. Russ Goldman, Mr. Cottage Talk. How are you, mate?
I am well, Jack. Thank you for having me on. And I just want to start off by saying a couple things. First of all, I was on a radio show here in the U.S. Before the season began, and I was asked to predict the top six. I actually had Leicester City sixth. I actually predicted Leicester City sixth. So I'm not looking too good on my prediction, but I wanted just to say that I predicted them sixth. I've always had a soft spot for Leicester City because I think them winning the title was the best thing for the Premier League since I've been watching the Premier League. The best thing, because the domination of these top six teams, I think there needed to be a reset. And I think Leicester City winning it was huge, was massive. It still is a top six league, but I just like the fact that you won the title. It's been a little bit since you have, but I've always been watching Leicester City because I wanted you to stick to either in the top six or close to the top six, because I didn't want there to just to be this dominant top six for the rest of our lives. And so for me, Leicester City winning the title was a very good thing for the Premier League, for fans around the world.
No, I appreciate that, Russ. Talk to me, Russ. Talk to me about what you do then on the Cottage Talk and that, and where everyone can find you on the socials, mate.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack. So you can actually follow me on Twitter at Russ_Goldman, and also on the Twitter account Cottage Talk. We have a YouTube channel under Cottage Talk. You can actually, like I've mentioned in many shows, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also get us on any platform with the app. TalkSport is now, we are part of the TalkSport Fan Network. I just want to mention that. This podcast is actually part of it. We'll see where that takes us, but we are part of the TalkSport Fan Network. Cottage Talk is part of it. So, but if you want to subscribe, please do subscribe on YouTube to Cottage Talk, and follow me on Twitter if you'd like.
Yeah, appreciate that. Ross's channel is in the description, so go and give them a subscribe. Go check them out if you're a neutral or you're a Fulham fan watching tonight. Go and check Cottage Talk out. Russ, thoughts on your season so far? Then you're back in the Premier League. You're 8th place due to Brentford beating Liverpool as it stands. You can move back up to 7th depending if Liverpool go and beat Brentford. Talk to me about your season so far. Mitrovic is banging them in. And Fulham look a completely different side under Marco Silva. There's no fear. And they're going into every game thinking they can win every game now, and they brought in some very good players in the transfer window as well, haven't they?
Wow, you just said a mouthful there, Jack. So basically, let's talk about the manager, because I think everything starts with Marco Silva. The difference between Fulham, say 2 seasons ago under Scott Parker, now at Club Brugge, which is interesting, and this Fulham side is that 2 years ago it was Parker ball. It was trying to win matches 1-0, 2-1, very conservative in nature. This is a completely different side, a completely different way of playing. This is, like you said, the way I say, you've already said it, Fulham play with no fear. They're going to go into this match thinking that they can win. They've done this against Man City when they went to Man City. They don't go into a game thinking that they're going to get a draw, playing for a draw. They don't do it. So, and the interesting part is that this philosophy, you would think that they would have been hammered by now. The only time they got hammered was against Newcastle United at home, but we had a man sent off very early in the match. And again, that's probably why you saw that. But beyond that, the approach from Marco Silva and the players implementing his tactics is to play with no fear, to control the play, but play like you want to win the match. And as someone that has followed Fulham since, I'll tell you right now, since 2007, I've seen many different managers. One of our best managers was Roy Hodgson, who was conservative on the road and aggressive at home. So he would actually play for the draw at, say, going to the King Power Stadium. That's what he would do. Marco Silva will not do that. He will not play for the draw. He will play for the win. So for me, that has been refreshing to watch, Jack, is that I know that my team is going in at 150% to win the match. Will they win it? Who knows? But they are going with that mentality, that positive mentality. And it's infectious because the players really have taken to that philosophy. And I think the big thing for me, the big difference again from 2 seasons ago, and I said this to you before we went live, is that so many players have improved over Marco Silva's philosophy and his coaching compared to Parker. Now, this isn't a slant on Parker. This is more of just talking about how well the coaching has been under Silva. And the best example I can give you is, believe it or not, Alexander Mitrovic. Now, you mentioned to me 2 seasons ago, everyone's wondering, can Mitro kick it in the Premier League? And I thought he could. The problem was he wasn't playing in the Premier League because Scott Parker didn't fancy him as his striker. I know that's crazy, but it's true. It's absolutely true. He wanted, and I'm now reading things that, there's speculation that he wanted to get rid of him. He wanted to get players in that played his style. And he just did not play Mitrovic. And that was one of the first things that Marco Silva did. He built the team around Mitro, Jack. Yeah. And that to me was the way to do it. And this season, we've seen Mitro score goals. I mean, it's not a surprise to me that he's scoring goals. But for me, one of the major reasons why Fulham are where they are doesn't start with Mitro. This might surprise you. It actually starts with João Palhinha. João Palhinha was the signing that has basically the piece of the puzzle that everything else has basically fallen into place with. It starts with him. Everything Fulham do is based around Palhinha because they want to control central midfield, and his tackling as a defensive midfielder is phenomenal. And he not only protects the back four, does a phenomenal job in that, but he sets up the attack as well. He is the key to everything that they do. If I was in opposition, my first thought would be, I have to take him out of the match. I have to stifle Palhinha from doing what he does because he sets everything up.
Yes. How different is it, Russ? Obviously, last time you was in the Premier League, you spent a huge amount of money. You ended up going down. You've now come back up with a different approach, different manager. Obviously, you had Claudio Ranieri, didn't you, last time round? Obviously, you got the sack. Last time you was in the Premier League, you had Ranieri, didn't you? Played against Leicester. How much of a different approach is it now to how it was back then when you spent all that money in the last time you went down?
Okay, very interesting. So the first time we really spent a lot of money, Jack, was in 2018.
Yeah.
That's when we had Savisa as our manager. And when they bought players, I don't feel at the time that Savisa was really part of the decision-making process. So they brought in players, but I don't think that they had a plan that went along with the players. They spent a lot of money and
Yep.
they bought some very good players, but it didn't fit, I guess you could say, a puzzle like this team fits. So you spend all this money, you waste a lot of money on players that ultimately did not help you, and you get relegated. And then 2 seasons later, you come back up. And now, because you spent all that money, Jack, you can't do it again because of
No.
financial fair play. So now you have to get a bunch of loan deals. So because they spent so poorly in 2018, it affected them 2 years later under Scott Parker. So they brought in some quality players, but a lot of them were not Fulham players. They were loan players. So how much were they in for the fight for Fulham? I don't know. Plus, the philosophy of Parker was just, it was, like I said, it's Parker ball. It was basically very conservative. It just didn't work. So this time around, it's almost like a marriage of the two philosophies. They still spent money. They spent over 20 million on Polina. And honestly, I think he's worth 60 if you're asking me. He's that good. So they spent money. They spent on quality. They also brought in some loans, which the 2 loans really haven't worked out that much in Dan James and also Shane Duffy. But I think that they have been more cost effective with some of their other signings. They're not afraid to spend money. I think that the difference is Marco Silva's involved in the decision-making process. And they are bringing in players specifically for him. They are invested, Fulham Football Club, in Marco Silva. That is the difference. He is also invested in them. It's more of when you have ownership and you have a manager on the same page, that's the difference this time around.
Yes. Talk to me about the last game, Russ. Obviously, you beat Saints 2-1.
Yep.
Talk to me about that game. How did it fan out? Obviously, Ward-Prowse scored for Southampton, didn't he? That free kick. Fulham were leading the game 1-0. Then it went to 1-1. Then it went 2-1. Talk to me about how you've now adapted to coming from a draw in that to then go and win the game late on. Talk to me about that approach. Obviously, Marco Silva has drilled into this team a fighting spirit Fulham side. A side which, last time round didn't work out, but this time round, under Marco Silva, it has done. Mitrovic is banging them in. And Fulham are now 8th in the Premier League after the win against Southampton. Talk to me about that game, Russ.
It's interesting, Jack, because it was a team that actually frustrated Fulham throughout the match. And Nathan Jones, we had seen him at Luton Town. So he went for, I guess you could say, a more defensive approach. The interesting thing with Fulham is that when they have the ball, when Fulham have more of the ball, this is the challenge with them because they are great counterattacking, right? A fantastic counterattacking. When Fulham have more of the ball, this is when they have some issues, or I wouldn't say issues, but they're learning how to play when they are similar to when they were in the championship, when they had the majority of the ball. They're kind of going back to that, but they are learning how to deal with teams that frustrate them. And full credit to Southampton. They frustrated them throughout the match, and Fulham were showing that frustration. So if you play a more defensive approach and you basically try to beat Fulham on the counter, that can work. When they play teams that want to have more of the ball, this is when Fulham seem to flourish more. And that's why it should be an interesting contest between Fulham and Leicester City, because I think both teams are going to want to have the ball, which is a good thing, because I want to see an attractive match. I want to see a good match. I know Leicester City is not playing as well as they have in the past, but I have much respect for Leicester City. The players you have, the manager you have. I know probably the fans aren't crazy about Rodgers, and I understand that, but I respect Leicester City. So I actually had some I have a lot of respect for Southampton, but what happened in this match, Jack, is something that you just said. It's 1-1, and they have this mentality of not giving up. They now have the ability to come from behind, or even when a team scores on them, they don't give up. They continue to fight. And one of the very good qualities of Fulham this season, and we'll talk about this, and I'll mention this to you when you do my show, is Fulham are excellent, and I mean excellent, on set pieces. This is where they're scoring many, many goals, and they have many different routines. So this is going to be a challenge for Leicester City to deal with all the different combinations Fulham do on set pieces, because they change it up from each set piece that they do. And they scored 2 goals from set pieces, Jack. That's how they won the match. So I would say from a Leicester City perspective, they better be doing their homework on all of Fulham's set pieces, because that's where they score their goals. A lot of them.
Yeah, we've got this new set piece coach in now. Lars Goldman, I think it is. He worked for the American national team.
Oh, okay.
So we've got him in. He's doing a good job. Obviously, we conceded our first set piece against Newcastle in a very long time. Prior to that Tottenham game, which we lost 6-2 in. So we didn't concede a set piece until from that point onwards. Steve Reynolds says, Jack, how is important the squad you have and not to sell? Well, you have to keep your best players, and you have to progress by building around them players and not selling your best assets. But selling your best assets gets you puts you in a more deeper hole. Is a
totally
team,
agree.
You need to keep hold of them, build around them, and keep the same team. Because if you start like selling your best assets, then your team can go downwards rather than upwards, or it stays in the same place. But then you've got to have the right sort of module sort of players to fill in for them players that have been sold on. You've still got to match that sort of vibe. And I think with Maddison and Tielemans, if you're to sell them, then you've got to buy players who match that criteria. So that's how I'd answer that, Steve Reynolds. Russ, the next one we're going to move on to then is Leicester City versus Fulham at the King Power Stadium. Let's have a look at a few stats. Head-to-head stats in all competition. We beat you 29 times to your 40 wins. Drawn 17 times. And then the last 5 games in all competition, we beat you 2-0 at Craven Cottage in 2021. You beat us 2-1 in 2020. That was a game where you hadn't scored a penalty, Russ, and then you played Leicester and scored. 3-1, we beat you at the King Power Stadium. Tielemans and I believe Vardy scored as well. And then we drew 1-1 at your place when you had Claudio Ranieri. I think it was a short period with Claudio Ranieri. And then we beat you 4-3 in the Cup in 2013. Talk to me, Russ, about Leicester and Fulham then. What can we expect out of the game from a Fulham perspective, mate?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, from a Fulham perspective, they're going to go for all 3 points. But I was seeing the comments from Marco Silva in his presser today, and he has a lot of respect for Leicester City. He knows how good they are. I know how good they are. I know where they are position-wise, but I know, as you talked about the players you mentioned, you have to respect your opponent. And I know that Fulham are going in there respecting Leicester City. But as I mentioned, they're going to go in there with no fear. So they're going to go in there on the front foot. They will approach it that way. They're not going to approach it to be defensive. They're going to go in there to take it to Leicester City, because that's how they play. That's just how they play. That's how he sets them up. And we'll see how it goes. But I think it's going to be a difficult match for both teams, because I think listen, all 3 scenarios are definitely available here. It's funny because I saw Chris Sutton predicted a 2-0 victory for Leicester City. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for you, Jack, but he did predict a 2-0 victory. And I understand it. I actually understand why he would go in that direction, partially because he obviously watched the Fulham match against Southampton and really saw how Southampton frustrated Fulham. So it's probably where he's going on this. Then, of course, as he also mentioned, and I watched you play Liverpool, and I thought you played fairly well. And whenever I watch Leicester City, I still see the team from a season or two ago. I still see a dangerous team and a team that I have a lot of respect for. I think this is going to be a very difficult game, but I think it can go any way. It's whoever plays their best in this match. I know that's easy to say, but it might be who makes the least mistakes, because I think the clubs are even. I know Fulham are higher up in the table, and they don't fear going away from home. In fact, I think they actually thrive on going away from home. But it's going to be a difficult match for both teams. I think it's a good test.
Yeah, I think from a Leicester perspective, this game was always going to be difficult. It was never going to be an easy game. Fulham have played fantastically well this season. Respect to them. They're doing everything that's asked of them in it. They're answering their critics. They're obviously one of the favourites for relegation, because no one knew how Fulham would turn up this season. And
I
they
did.
proved so many critics wrong. Well, if you're a Fulham fan, you'd know, innit? You know what I mean? You've watched them last season and how they've turned out. But from a neutral perspective, it's
I know.
How do Fulham even compete this season? But I think with Leicester, it's a difficult game for Leicester. Leicester have really got to be on their game. Our last home game, we lost 3-0 to Newcastle. We've got to be better than that. On Friday night, we were so much better with the ball, attacking and that against Liverpool. But Wout Fason goaled it twice and then handed Liverpool the win, which obviously would knock confidence from Leicester. But we can take so many positives into this Fulham game, where the way we play, and we can dictate play, and I think we can undo Fulham's defence quite a bit. Obviously, if Harvey Barnes starts playing the game he usually plays, then he'll be good for this game. But Harvey Barnes is like unpredictable. You don't know which Harvey Barnes you're going to get on the day of the game, and I think Samore and DD, they'll be key in this game to keeping Mitrovic out. The defence has got to be fantastic in this game, because Mitrovic, like you say, set pieces and in the air and that, fantastic, aren't they? Fulham from set pieces. So Leicester got to be on their watch. But I think now, Russ, this won't be a very tricky game for Leicester. It's not going to be an easy game. You can't overlook a side like Fulham, because you don't know what's around the corner in any game. So you've got to respect your opponent, like you say. And I won't really say that for Nottingham Forest, because we're rivals, in it. So, I guess we can have that one as a respective margin. But
I don't like that side, by the way. Can I just say that? In fact, I can't stand that side, okay?
I'll share you.
I'm not saying that so your supporters are happy with me. I'm just saying that I can't stand Nottingham Forest. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, that's it then. You can come on the channel anytime you want. Russ, last time round, we lost 2-1 to you guys. I don't know if you remember the game.
I did.
Adimo Lookman scored.
I remember.
He was on loan at Fulham. And, you scored a penalty as well. That was the first time you scored a penalty in so many games you'd missed a penalty. And it's always Leicester, they come to bite on the arse when these stats always seem to weigh up into a game. It's always Leicester what let it happen to them. But what can we expect from last time round to this time round, Russ?
Well, it's interesting because, like I said, this team is so different from that team. The one thing that I will mention that I think will be similar is a couple players that, if I remember correctly, were involved in that match. And that's actually, I want to say Bobby Decordova-Reid played in that match. I could be wrong, but I remember Anthony Robinson as a left back was involved. Anthony Robinson is a player that I've been mentioning to you, Jack, about how players have improved under Silva. He's a player that I wanted them to upgrade on this summer. And he has been just fantastic this season. So when I look at Fulham, they are vulnerable defensively. As you know, you could see how many goals they've given up. And part of that has to do, it could come down a little bit to the approach, and because the approach is to be very aggressive and it can leave them a little open.
Yep.
But someone like Anthony Robinson has really turned on his defensive abilities. I mean, he shut down even someone like Mohamed Salah. There hasn't been someone that he's gone after that he has been really exposed against. So defensively, I think they're different. They can be had. It's still, again, that center back pairing has changed a little bit. Tim Ream, and then of course you have Diop. The only thing I would say, if you got someone speedy, I would definitely challenge Tim Ream. Tim Ream has been phenomenal for us, but he's 35 years old. And I've not seen a team really get to Tim Ream speed-wise. And again, I'm not trying to give a blueprint. I'm trying to tell you some of the weaknesses. He has been fantastic. He's a great ball-playing center back, and he's been fantastic. But if you make him run and you expose him, you could give yourself opportunities. That's what, if from a Leicester City perspective, that's where I would try to expose him with the lack of his pace. And I can't believe I'm doing that, because Fulham supporters who watch this are going to be like, why are you telling him this? But, that's the reality. For me, when I look at this match, Jack, and like I said, I respect so many of your players. I think it's going to come down to, from a Fulham perspective, can they control central midfield? Can Polina and Reed run the show and allow Andres Pereira to get forward and basically set up our wingers and, of course, Mitro? But it really, for me, Fulham are about that engine room. If they can control the game, they're going to have a good chance to win it.
Yeah, I think it's about who wins that midfield and battle and who's better on the day. Madison's going to be missing in this game. And then we've got Patson Daka, who's got pace. So that's something that we could exploit you on. But Patson Daka's not going to be playing. So I guess we'll be playing Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy's not getting any younger. Do you know what I mean? So I guess he's lost a bit of pace, but he still feels young inside. Do you get what I'm saying? He can still score goals when obviously teams are writing him off. Russ, talk to me about footing both camps. I've chose 4 players who've played for both clubs. Talk to me about, we'll start with Anthony Knockout. Talk to me about him, his time at Fulham.
Wow. Well, Anthony Knockaert's time at Fulham was underwhelming. I'm just going to be honest there. It's a player that we thought was really going to help us not only in the championship, but in the Premier League. And it just didn't work out that way. He wasn't the same player that he was when he was playing at Brighton.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he lost a step. I just don't know if, for whatever reason, maybe it was the tactics, maybe it was Scott Parker, but we never saw the best of Anthony Knockaert. He was actually a pretty good disappointment for Fulham.
Yeah, he was good at Leicester, Knockaert, when we were in the Championship and that. Talk to me about Adamo Lookman. Obviously, Leicester had him on loan last season.
Yep.
He was fantastic for us. We could have signed him for £10 million. We decided to go against it. Talk to me about Lookman's loan at Fulham, Russ.
It's an interesting one with Adamo Lookman, because at times I thought that he showed the glimpses of the player, that the potential. He has all this potential, Jack, and maybe this is why Leicester City didn't buy him, is because when I think about him, the one word that comes up is potential. And I don't think he's been able to basically really show that potential to becoming an elite player, which I think he has the ability, but I just don't think he's lived up to the potential. So that would be the best way to describe him. A lot of potential, you could see the skills, but he never put it together.
Next one, Paul Konchesky.
Okay, well, Paul Konchesky for me is a player that I will always love, because it's during a period of time when Fulham were in the Europa League, even before that, and he was key to what they did during those Roy Hodgson years. As a left back, some fantastic crosses. I go back and I watch the highlights of some of these Europa League matches, and he's all over it. So for me, I hold him in very good esteem.
Yeah, Contra is very good for Leicester in his time. So much respect for him. Diamante Camera.
Oh boy. Well, let's move on.
Okay, we'll move on. Mark Schwarzer.
Okay. Well, Mark Schwarzer, Mark Schwarzer, I think every goalkeeper from Schwarzer on is compared to him. And that's, and again, just another player during those Hodgson years that was just such, not just a pro, but so key to everything that they did. Mark Schwarzer is a Fulham legend.
Yeah.
And that tells you all that you need to know. A Fulham legend.
A Fulham legend. Right then, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Injury news. Is there any injury news from yours? Obviously, I've mentioned Maddison, Patson Daka, Johnny Evans. From a Fulham perspective, then, any injury news ahead of the Leicester game, Russ?
Not really, except that Mitro's not 100%. Mitro's still not 100%. He was really, you could see it when you watch him, Jack. He's just not up to it yet. He came into the World Cup with a foot injury. It's been a whole controversy with Fulham and the Serbian national team. Obviously, he wanted to play for Serbia.
Yeah.
But he's still not back to 100% yet. And it's funny, Steve Reynolds, who actually commented here, who's a Fulham supporter, mentioned this, that when you watch Mitro in the last couple matches, Mitro usually goes right up to the goalkeeper and makes him kick it long. He hasn't done that in the last two matches. Part of that, we believe, has to do with the injury.
Yeah, that might be a good thing for Leicester then. Keeping him up. Might slow down a bit. No, I can't be saying that. He's a good player, Mitrovic. Talk to me about team selection, Russ. What 11 are we expecting then from Fulham tomorrow night?
Well, what I would look at is I would look at Leno and net. I think right back is going to be Kenny Tete. Left back is going to be Anthony Robinson.
Yeah.
I think you're looking at Diop, and then also I think you're looking at Tim Ream.
Yeah.
Central midfield picks itself. It's going to be just I'm doing like we call a Goldman. I'm blanking a little bit. It's Harrison Reed, Andres Pereira, and João Palhinha. On the left, I'm gonna go with Willian. On the right, this is interesting. I'm still gonna go with Bobby Decordova-Reid and then Mitro up front.
Yeah, fantastic. Leicester, I'm gonna go Danny Ward, Timothy Castagno, Luke Thomas, Walt Fast, Daniel Amorti as a back four. I'm going to go Samara and Ndidi in their midfield, centre defensive midfield roles. Tillemans is going to play. I think Dewsbury Hall's going to play. Vardy will play, and Barnes. So I'm going to go for all of them. I think Dewsbury Hall will play more out wide. I think they'll use him that way with Barnes. Tillemans, Ndidi, and Samara will have that midfield three. And then because we can't play any other player, but then there's the Jose Perez. Will Jose Perez start ahead of Tillemans? Who knows? But I'd like to see two up front from Leicester, to be honest. I know I've just gave my 11, but I'd kind of like to see Iheanacho and Vardy against Fulham's defence tomorrow night. I think that could be key to Leicester potentially going on to win the game. So I think a two up front is what Leicester fans would want to see, but it's Brendan Rodgers, isn't it? You don't know what you're going to get. So for me, it's kind of one of them.
Okay.
Ross, talk to me then. Score prediction, mate. Where are we going with this one?
Okay. I think there are going to be goals in this match, Jack. I think there are going to be 4 goals. I'm going for a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. Desmond, fantastic. Guys, get your score predictions in the comment section.
Jack, can I go back on one thing? It's funny, and I'll explain why. Remember you were asking me about Diamante camera?
Yeah, Diamante camera.
So we call this on Cottage Talk a Goldman. I was actually thinking of a different camera at the time. And I'm like, oh my God, we're talking about the guy who scored these goals during the Great Escape, I was thinking, I can't believe, and any Fulham supporter that watches is thinking, like, Russ, what was your problem? I was thinking about Abubakar Kamara, which again I'm like, he never played for Leicester. What am I doing? So that's what we call a classic Goldman. But the Amancic camera actually is well thought of because he scored some incredible goals, especially in that Man City match in 2007.
They used to have that
the Great
celebration,
Escape.
didn't
Yes,
the
yes,
camera
yes.
celebration.
Here I am thinking about a completely different camera. So I'm like, what am I doing? So I have to call my own mistakes, my friend. Have to call my own mistakes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2-1 Leicester.
Okay.
I'm gonna back my boys tomorrow night. It's what a fan would do who supports obviously Leicester. They'll back their own club. You never go against your own club, do you, Russ, when you're predicting? I know it might.
No, that's not true. I do.
It might make you look stupid when you predict it, and some fans are like, because I had a lot of Newcastle fans or Leicester fans saying that they're going to beat Newcastle in the predictions. You back your own club at the end of the day, and it's football. And
yeah,
I get if it's Manchester City or whoever the opposition is, you're still going to back your own team, even though in your head you think you're going to get slapped up 6-0 against Man City. But in your heart, it's always, we want Leicester to do the best and want us to win the game. So I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to go Vardy and Harvey Barnes. And I think for Fulham, Mitrovic, hands down, Mitrovic. Kaysen's gone 3-2 and Dan's gone 4-3 to Leicester. So he's going for the same 1-1. Remember the Lloyd Dyer goal when we beat you 4-3 in the cup? You remember that game?
Oh, I remember.
There he is. He's gone for the same score as that. Russ, people who's just joining then, they want to know where they can find you on the social medias, and tell me what you do then, Russ.
Sure. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Russ_Goldman, or on the Twitter account for Cottage Talk, simply Cottage Talk. You could also follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Cottage Talk. Please do. We're trying to build that up. Jack, you know how difficult it can be on YouTube to build up a YouTube channel. It takes a while. So I appreciate anyone that subscribes. We just got some new subscribers. It was great. Someone actually said they just found us and they were happy that they found us. It's difficult to find you when I've been on YouTube only for 1.5 years, and it's just been difficult. It's hard. So I appreciate anyone that subscribes on YouTube, and feel free to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast app that's out there. Obviously, really appreciate it. And lastly, I'll just mention what's great about Cottage Talk. We're now part of the Talk Sport Fan Network with some other great podcasts, and we'll see where that takes us. I know Talk Sport can have a very interesting reputation in England, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Right, Russ, thank you for coming on, mate. You've been a great guest tonight. Thank you for giving us an opposition view on Fulham, and all the best for the rest of the season after tomorrow night.
Thanks, Jack.
Cheers, Russ. That was Russ Goldman from Cottage Talk. Hello, David. How are you? I've given up on football, so I've come to your channel. It must be a bad game then, the Liverpool-Brentford game, if you come to me, David. But, guys, if you've enjoyed the stream, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please go and subscribe. We're on the road to 1K. We're on 900 and something. So if you can hit that subscribe button, it'll get us one closer to 1,000. So really appreciate the support. Thank you for taking the time to watch tonight on the match preview. Really appreciate it. And someone's just said 3-1 Brentford. Wow. Well, there we have it. Leicester going to concede 2 goals. Own goals against Liverpool, who were poor on Friday night. Brentford going to beat Liverpool. What do you make of that? But yeah, thank you for watching, everyone. This is Jack from the Final Whistle saying good night. Have a good rest of the evening, and I will see you again in another stream. Bye bye for now, everyone. Take care.